What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Francis Ngannou responds to Dana White. Following an action-packed night of fights at the Apex, UFC President Dana White spoke to media members to recap the night and discuss all the latest happenings in MMA. Naturally, given the massive news this week, White was asked about former heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou and his deal with the PFL. With a $2 million guaranteed purse for his opponent, a seat as the chairman of PFL Africa, and the opportunity to box before stepping into the cage next year, Ngannou seems to have secured himself quite an impressive deal. The way White sees things, however, the deal doesn't make much sense. While admitting that he doesn't know all that much about the deal, he stated,
"It makes no sense to me. I mean, you're going to pay a guy not to fight for a year, and it's already been like 18 months. He's fought 3 times in the last 3 years. It's just not what we do here. It's not what we do." And the day that we released him, I knew exactly what was going to happen. And Francis wants to take 0 risks. Doesn't want to take any chances.
Quickly, the footage of White's comments began to make their way around social media, with the Predator taking note. In a series of tweets, he addressed White's claims, questioning what his former boss's problem is. First, Ngannou pointed out that he completed his contract and chose to walk away from the UFC, setting the record straight on White's claims that the promotion released him. Next, the former champ shot back at White's claim that he's afraid to take risks, pointing out that he went into his UFC 270 clash against Ciryl Gane with a torn ACL and MCL. Last but certainly not least, Ngannou shed light on the reason he fought 3 times in 3 years, saying that he was not offered the 3 fights a year White claims he's obligated to offer. Before signing off, Ngannou sent one final message to the UFC president, writing, "I'm finally getting paid and respected and have a deal that's fair and equal for all parties. Why are you so against me being free and happy?" With plenty of time before the end of the year, Ngannou will set his sights on finding an opponent for his boxing debut before then refocusing in on returning to MMA next year. Dana White teases announcement regarding UFC 293. This week, it was revealed that the UFC had worked out a deal to return to Australia 3 times over the next few years. In addition, the UFC announced that they would be returning to Sydney for UFC 293 on September 10th. The expectation, considering that Alexander Volkanovski is set to compete at International Fight Week, is that Israel Adesanya will headline that card. However, with Robert Whittaker and Dricus du Plessis set to throw down at UFC 290 on July 8th, many have questioned how the winner could possibly make such a quick turnaround to compete against Adesanya just 2 months later. During the recent post-fight press conference, White teased a big announcement when asked about the potential short turnaround, saying,
We'll make that announcement soon.
Considering the fact that the middleweight champ likes to remain active, the speculation is that the UFC books him to compete against light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill, given that Yuri Prochazka recently shot down talk of an August return in Boston. With Adesanya's longtime rival, Alex Pereira, set to compete against former light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz, many believe that the UFC could be trying to set up a potential quadrilogy fight between Adesanya and Pereira, assuming that both men were to pick up big wins. Another potential fight that fans have thrown out, but seems less likely, is a fight between Adesanya and Khamzat Chimaev, who has been chomping at the bit to return to the octagon. From the sounds of things, fight fans will find out what the UFC is cooking up sooner rather than later. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love, and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Michael Bisping offers advice to Conor McGregor ahead of return. Hall of Famer Michael Bisping has some advice he believes could help former 2-division champ Conor McGregor make a successful return to the octagon. During a recent video on his YouTube channel, Bisping weighed in on the Irish star's potential return on the UFC's year-end card in Las Vegas, while offering him some advice.
He's going to get off the whatever he's on, got to get off the good stuff and get back on the protein shakes and the porridge, and we'll be good, you know. But he has got to do some work. He's got to get training. He's got to get in the gym. He's got to do everything.
In the time since the video, USADA has confirmed that McGregor is re-enrolled in the testing pool, meaning that he will be eligible to return to the octagon in late November. UFC President Dana White was also asked about the timeline for the fight following Saturday's event, confirming that McGregor is working through things with USADA and that the UFC will announce his return during the airing of The Ultimate Fighter. As White stated, the UFC hopes to have a big card at Madison Square Garden in November, before then hosting a big Vegas card in December, which would likely be headlined by McGregor. Dana White reacts to hesitancy from Aljamain Sterling. Despite UFC President Dana White announcing a UFC 292 clash between Aljamain Sterling and Sugar Sean O'Malley, it sounds as though the two men have not signed contracts to compete against one another. The bantamweight champ recently found himself in headlines after admitted that although he verbally agreed to the fight, he just needs to make sure his body is 100%. The comments left many questioning if the UFC had jumped the gun on the announcement. However, Dana White has a different take. The way he sees things, the fight will take place at UFC 292 in Boston as planned. No ifs, ands, or buts. From the boss's perspective, Aljamain Sterling simply cannot get out of his own way. He spoke during the recent post-fight press conference about the champ's recent comments, saying,
Aljo's one of those guys who just can't get out of his own way. You know, apparently he's in for the fight. Why he said that, who knows? It's just, the fight is on.
Okay, I don't want to.
The fight is absolutely positively on.
As White also revealed, Henry Cejudo recently called him, stating that if Sterling was not ready to fight at UFC 292, he would gladly compete against Sean O'Malley. The following day, the Funkmaster reacted to White's comments, calling out Sugar Sean for a clash at International Fight Week a month earlier than they planned to fight, while questioning whether or not the #1 contender was quote-unquote built like that. O'Malley quickly responded, saying that he is not built like that, and he will see the champ on August 19th as planned. The way O'Malley's coach, Tim Welch, sees things, Sterling is likely the most dangerous bantamweight champion there's ever been. Given that, it's no surprise that O'Malley wants to make sure he takes plenty of time to prepare. When the two do compete inside the octagon, who do you think gets the job done? Drop your predictions in the comments section down below. Themba Gorimbo shocks MMA fans by thanking unlikely supporter after big win. On Saturday, Themba Gorimbo picked up a massive win inside the octagon over Takashi Sato, earning himself his first win under the UFC banner. Following the victory, an enthusiastic Gorimbo spoke with Michael Bisping inside the octagon. Later in the evening, he revealed during the post-fight press conference that he went through some struggles after being submitted in his UFC debut back in February. When he returned home, he said people looked down at him for coming up short. In addition, prior to his big win on Saturday, Gorimbo admitted that he had just $7 in his bank account. The unlikely hero who stepped in to make sure he had food despite not having money? Colby Covington. During the post-fight press conference, Gorimbo shocked fans and thanked Covington, saying that he's a great guy.
Colby Covington, he's such a great guy, man. Colby Covington, sometimes he'll bring food for me at the gym, you know. And people say what they say about him, but that guy is a great man. You have to know him to kind of know him. Just like me, you have to know me to kind of know me, you know. At the end of the day, it's business.
After collecting his show and win money for his performance, Gorimbo hopes to fulfill his dream of moving to Miami to train full-time in the future. With an impressive 11-4 record, Gorimbo is confident that he's officially made his presence felt in the UFC's welterweight division. When he steps inside the octagon next, who do you want to see him compete against? Play matchmaker and sound off in the comment section below. Thank you so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.